I'll never forget the morning I woke up to check my brokerage account and saw it. $1,047 in dividend payments for the month, just sitting there. Money I didn't work for, didn't negotiate for, didn't trade my time for, and I know what you're thinking. $1,000, that's not life-changing money. That's not quit your job money. Hell, that barely covers rent in most cities. But you're missing what actually changed. Because that $1,000 a month did something to my brain that no amount of salary ever did. It broke the connection between my time and my money. And once that connection breaks, you start seeing everything differently. Let me show you what I mean. Before I hit that $1,000 monthly dividend mark, I was like everyone else, trapped in the time for money equation. I had a decent job, made about $75,000 a year, saved when I could, did all the responsible things, but every single dollar I had required me to show up, clock in, perform, please the boss, hit the metrics. I was a hamster on a wheel that paid pretty well, but it was still a wheel. That first $1,000 a month in dividends, it was the door out of the cage, not a full exit, not yet. But knowing the door existed changed everything about how I operated inside the cage. Here's what nobody tells you about building dividend income. The first $500 a month is brutal. It feels impossible. You're putting away money, watching the account grow, and the dividends feel like nothing. $40 here, $75 there. It's almost insulting how small the returns feel compared to the sacrifice. I remember sitting there one month looking at a $72 dividend payment, thinking this is pointless. I could pick up one freelance project and make 5 times this in a weekend. Why am I bothering with this slow build? But I kept going. And somewhere between $500 and $1,000 monthly, something magical happens. The compounding starts to feel real. The snowball that's been slowly rolling down the hill picks up actual momentum. You can see it working. Let me break down exactly what changes when you hit that $1,000 monthly mark, because it's not just the money, it's everything that money represents. First thing that changed for me, my relationship with my job, and this is huge. Before the dividends, I needed my job. Like genuinely needed it. Miss 2 paychecks and I'd be scrambling. That need made me a worse employee, by the way, made me play it safe, avoid risks, never push back on unreasonable demands. But when I started pulling in $1,000 a month in dividends, that's $12,000 a year I don't have to earn through labor. That's 3 months of basic expenses covered. Suddenly, I had what I call breathing room. My boss pulls some power play. I can push back without existential fear. Company wants to lowball me on a raise. I can negotiate harder or walk. Toxic coworker making life miserable. I've got options that don't involve just suffering through it. That $1,000 a month bought me leverage in every professional interaction. I wasn't desperate anymore, and people can smell desperation. When you stop reeking of it, they treat you differently. Second thing that changed, my spending psychology. This one's subtle, but it completely rewired how I think about money. Before, every spending decision was about afford versus can't afford. Can I afford this dinner out? Can I afford this trip? Can I afford to replace my laptop? It was binary, yes or no based on my bank balance and upcoming bills. After hitting $1,000 monthly in dividends, the question changed. Now it's, is this worth my dividend income? Very different question. That dinner out for $80, that's 8% of my monthly dividend income. Is it worth 8% of my passive income? Sometimes yes, often no. But I'm thinking about opportunity cost now, not just affordability. That perspective shift made me way better with money. Not more stingy, more intentional. Big difference. I started seeing everything through the lens of what does this cost in terms of freedom, because that's what dividend income is. It's freedom. Every dollar of dividend income is a dollar of your life you don't have to sell. Third major change, the confidence boost is real, and I don't mean in some woo-woo manifestation sense. I mean concrete, tangible confidence that affects everything you do. When you're pulling in $1,000 a month in passive income, you've proven something to yourself. You've proven you can build assets. You've proven you can delay gratification. You've proven you understand how money actually works. That proof changes how you walk into rooms, how you negotiate, how you carry yourself. I started taking on projects I would have been too scared to attempt before, started conversations I would have avoided, made moves I would have second-guessed into paralysis. Why? Because I had proof I could build something from nothing. That dividend portfolio was evidence that I knew what I was doing, and that evidence gave me permission to trust myself in other areas. Fourth thing, time freedom starts becoming real. Not full freedom yet, but partial freedom, which is its own kind of revolutionary. With $1,000 a month in dividend income, I could afford to work 4 days a week instead of 5 if I wanted. I could take a lower-paying job that I actually enjoyed. I could start a business and give it 6 months to work without immediate panic about bills. The math is simple, but the implications are enormous. Most people never get time freedom because they can't afford the pay cut that comes with it, that $1,000 a month. It subsidizes the life you actually want to live. I know a guy who used his dividend income to go part-time at his job so he could spend more time with his kids. He took a $20,000 pay cut, but his dividend income covered most of that gap. His time with his kids went from rushed evenings to full weekday afternoons. You can't put a price on that, except you can. It's roughly $1,000 a month in dividend income. Now let's talk about how you actually get there. Because $1,000 a month sounds great until you start doing the math and realize how much capital that requires. At a 4% yield, which is achievable with quality dividend stocks, you need about $300,000 invested to generate $12,000 annually. That's $1,000 a month. 300,000. For most people reading that number, their brain just shut off. That's impossible. That's lottery money. That's inheritance money. Regular people can't build that, except regular people do. All the time, they just don't do it overnight. Here's how the path actually works. Let's say you're starting from zero, completely broke, but you can scrape together $300 a month to invest. That's $75 a week, a couple of skipped dinners out, one less subscription service, brown bag lunch a few days a week. You invest that $300 monthly into dividend-paying index funds, solid companies that grow their dividends every year. You reinvest every dividend automatically. Year 1, you've got about $3,600 in the account, throwing off maybe $150 total for the year. Pathetic, I get it. Year 5. You're sitting on about $25,000, generating maybe $800 annually. Still nowhere near $1,000 monthly. Still feels like you're getting nowhere. But then watch what happens. Year 10, you've got $65,000 in the account. Your annual dividend income is approaching $3,000. That's $250 monthly. Starting to feel real. Year 15, you're at around $130,000, generating about $6,000 annually, $500 a month, halfway to the goal. Year 20, you've crossed $300,000 and you're pulling in that $1,000 monthly, maybe more if you picked good companies and reinvested smartly. 20 years, that's the timeline for someone investing $300 a month. Too long? Maybe, but what's your alternative? Keep trading time for money forever. That timeline is also 20 years, and at the end you're still trapped. But here's where it gets interesting. Most people don't invest $300 a month for 20 years straight. They start small, then they get a raise, then they slash an expense, then their income grows from the dividends themselves. I started with $200 a month. By year 3, I was doing $500. By year 7, I was cranking in $1,200 monthly, not because I became rich, because I got obsessed with the goal and found money everywhere. And here's the secret nobody talks about. The first $100,000 is absolutely brutal. It takes forever. You're grinding and the account barely moves, but something happens after $100,000. It starts moving on its own. At 8% returns, $100,000 generates $8,000 a year. That's almost $700 a month in growth without you adding a dime. Suddenly, you're not the only one pushing the boulder uphill. The boulder is pushing itself. That's when it goes from feeling impossible to feeling inevitable. Let me tell you about the month I hit exactly $1,012 in dividend payments. I didn't quit my job. Didn't change my life dramatically, but I did something small that would have been impossible before. My company wanted me to work Saturday to finish a project. Big client, important deadline. They really needed me, and normally I would have said yes. Because that's what you do when you need your job, but I said no. First time in my career, I just said no to weekend work, and the reason I could do that $1,000 a month gave me the security to set a boundary. They didn't fire me. Didn't even get that mad. They found someone else. And I spent Saturday with my family instead of in an office. That's what $1,000 a month in dividend income buys you, the ability to say no. Now here's what most people get wrong about dividend investing. They think it's about picking the highest yielding stocks. They see some company paying 7 or 8% and think that's the play. Wrong, dead wrong. High yield often means high risk. The market isn't stupid. If a company is paying 8%, there's usually a reason: declining business. Unsustainable payout. Something's broken. The real strategy for building to that $1,000 a month, dividend growth, not dividend yield. I'd rather own a company paying 2% that grows its dividend 15% annually than a company paying 6% that never grows. Why? Because in 5 years, that 2% yield on my original investment is actually closer to 4%. In 10 years, it's over 8%. Meanwhile, that 6% yield is still 6%. No growth, no compounding, just static income. This is why I focus on companies that have raised their dividends for decades. The aristocrats, the kings, boring companies in boring industries that print cash and share it with shareholders, companies that make toothpaste and soap, that sell electricity and gas, that provide internet and phone service. Nobody's excited about these businesses, but they're gold for dividend investors. And here's the beautiful part. These companies almost always appreciate in value over time too, so you're getting dividend growth and share price growth. Your $1,000 a month becomes $1,200, then $1,500, then $2,000. All without you doing anything except holding and reinvesting. Let me address the biggest objection I hear. Why not just invest in index funds and withdraw 4% annually? Isn't that the same thing? Sort of, but there's a psychological difference that matters. When you're living off dividend income, you never touch the principal. The goose keeps laying golden eggs forever. Your net worth isn't declining, it's still growing. With the 4% withdrawal method, you're selling shares. Your nest egg is shrinking. Maybe it grows enough to offset the withdrawals. Maybe it doesn't. There's anxiety in that approach. Dividends feel different. The money arrives, you spend it. The shares are still there. The dividends come again next quarter. It's sustainable in a way that feels more secure, even if the math works out similarly. That psychological difference matters when you're trying to actually live off investment income. The security of knowing you're not depleting your base is huge. Now let's talk about what that first $1,000 a month actually covers, because it's more than you think. $1,000 monthly is $12,000 annually. That's groceries for most families. That's a decent car payment. That's utilities, insurance, and gas combined. That's a vacation budget that doesn't require credit cards. It's not everything, but it's something, and something is infinitely more than nothing. I know people who use their dividend income to cover their kids' private school tuition. Others use it for their car expenses so they never have a payment. Some just let it build as their fun money, concerts, trips, hobbies, without touching their salary. However you use it, it's money that arrives whether you work or not, whether you're sick or healthy, whether you're motivated or burned out. It just comes. That reliability is freedom. Limited freedom at this point, but freedom nonetheless. Here's what changed for me personally once I crossed that $1,000 threshold. I stopped seeing work as my only option. Before, if I hated my job, I had one choice: suck it up, because I needed the money. After, I had options. Not unlimited options, but options. I could take a pay cut for a better situation, could go part-time, could start something new and give it time to work, could negotiate harder because walking away was possible. That shift from no options to some options is the difference between captivity and agency. And agency is what we're really after when we talk about financial freedom. The wealthy figured this out generations ago. They don't work for money, they have money work for them. Dividend income is how regular people access that same dynamic. You're not going to match a billionaire's investment income. But you can build enough to change your relationship with work, and that changes everything else. So here's my challenge to you. Stop thinking about dividend income as supplemental. Start thinking about it as essential, as the path to options. As buying back pieces of your life one dividend at a time. That first $1,000 monthly is the milestone that matters, not because it's enough to retire, but because it's enough to start making decisions based on what you want instead of what you can afford. Build toward it. Track it obsessively. Celebrate every $100 increase, because you're not just building income, you're building leverage, you're building options, you're building freedom. And once you hit it, once you see that $1,000 arrive in a month without trading your time for it, you'll understand what I meant at the beginning. It changes everything, not because of the money itself, but because of what that money represents. Proof that you can build something that works without you. Proof that you're not stuck. Proof that freedom is possible. Start building today. Future you is going to want those options.